Welcome back to Natural Healers Network. Our next guest is a very special person. She's got an amazing personality, Stacey Lehnen at Envision Care Management. So she was saying, let's just be conversational here. I'm going to look at a few questions. But Stacey, you're so fun to talk to.
Oh, thank you so
much. Have terrific energy.
Likewise.
Thank you for being here today. So you kind of gave me a cue as to how to get started here. So long-term care of our elderly or chronically ill population is not often discussed, or there's not a lot of information on it. So can you tell us about the challenges of caring for a loved one and the types of situations your clients find themselves in?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Long-term care for anyone that's having to take care of a loved one that's ill, whether they're elderly or maybe it's, God forbid, something's happened to someone that you love, autoimmune disease, some chronic illness, or for some reason has become disabled. Long-term care is something that is not often discussed, and it's something that each one of us is going to have to deal with in our lifetimes. Yeah. Yes, unfortunately. Yeah. And so my clients tend to really come from all different backgrounds and all different needs. But the one main need is there's a crisis and somebody needs to be taken care of. And what are we going to do about that? And what are the options that are out there? Right. Typically people don't know all the options that are available. They think that Medicare will pay for everything. And that's really not such the case. Yeah. So what we've done is we've created an innovative and a dynamic way to provide care management to families that need assistance taking care of a loved one. I feel like my job is to help ease the burden and stress of families having to care for someone. There's a very interesting statistic. It's $3 billion every year is lost in wages from people having to either leave the workforce or take time off to care for a loved one. It could be a child, elderly, spouse, whoever it is. And that is a staggering number. So when looking at long-term care, personally I've had to deal with this with my own family. And in understanding and learning all the options out there, we learned, oh my goodness, who's helping families actually go through this whole process to understand all the different options, the different kinds of facilities, and more importantly, it's bringing everybody together to be able to make smart decisions on behalf of the one that needs the help. Right.
I think especially with aging baby boomers, it's kind of like the sandwich generation. Kids, people have their own families, but yet, their parents are getting older, and like you said, where do you go? What do you do?
Yes. I got into this business from my mother-in-law broke her hip, and she was put in a rehab, this very beautiful place. And while she was there, we got a call and they told us that we needed to find an alternative place to bring her. And that the charge was going to be $450 a day, and that Medicare was not going to pay for anything. Yes, well, I did my research, and I actually learned what the rules are. And while Medicare wouldn't necessarily pay for many, months to be in rehab, they will pay up to a certain point. And so I was able to advocate for my mother-in-law, and when we got the bill for $8,000, I was able to go back to that organization and say, actually, no, this is the way it's supposed to be, and this is, what you should have done. And so we created a model to help families that are going through, whether it's a crisis or whether they know, let's say there's been a decline in somebody's health, or there's onset of Alzheimer's or dementia, that sort of thing.
So you're like an advocate for people too, because if you don't really have the wherewithal or know what to do, you were able to do some research and get some facts and know what you're doing. But if you don't have that, oh my goodness.
Exactly. You're left to just go along with what everyone else is telling you.
Whatever the system. Yeah. So how do people find you then? How do they?
So really through referrals is generally how people tend to find us, through other clients. We do a lot of events, a lot of senior events at senior communities here in the peninsula and San Jose area, and even through other professionals, just like the other folks here that you're interviewing, through other people that know of our services, because it is something a little bit unique. And I think it's something that all families, unfortunately, are going to have to deal with at some point. You know, a loved one that needs care and can no longer be on their own. You say, well, what do we do in that situation? So what we do is we come in, we do an assessment, we talk to the doctors, we understand what the medical conditions are, and we identify the need, and we create a care plan that really takes the whole person into account. It's not just the medicines and the doctors, but you know, what does that individual need? Do they need more connection with the outside? Maybe I've even gone as far as training people how to use an iPad and you know, to do FaceTime with family members at a distance, that kind of thing.
It's too bad that it wasn't mainstream in our medical model now, I guess. I don't know if you work with like doctors that specialize in geriatrics or special. Do you?
Yes, we have. Yes, we certainly have. And we also will make recommendations for physicians when we have a client that, let's say, needs to find, let's say, a new psychiatrist. We will help find and do referrals for physicians. But most importantly, we're helping keep everyone on the same page. So, for example, let's say my mother-in-law, she got out of the rehab, she had a broken hip. Well, her psychiatrist didn't know anything about that, and the new medications, the primary care physician didn't know anything about that. So what we do is we contact all the physicians so that everyone's on the same page as an actual care team, rather than operating in a silo.
And that seems the way that it is within the medical profession. You've got the heart guy, you've got the brain guy, you've got this guy, and it's like, why don't you guys talk?
And I think technology is helping to bridge together, right? But at the same time, nothing is going to take away that, you know, interpersonal thing that has to happen.
You're like an advocate. You really are like an advocate.
We're the advocate. We will go on doctor's appointments with people. You know, if there's an emergency, God forbid, we can be there for the families, you know, to be their eyes and ears in case a family is at a distance and their loved one is more local to where we are.
Oh, that's really good. So tell us the difference between a care manager and a caregiver, and how do families benefit from having a care manager?
Well, that's a great question. So there's a great difference. So a caregiver is the person that will come into your home and help you with all of your activities of daily living. The bathing, clothing, preparing meals, maybe running errands, all those day-to-day activities when somebody needs help, right? A care manager is a professional that has experience in either geriatrics. They could be, let's say, even a physical therapist or a therapist, you know, like a marriage, family therapist, that sort of thing. It's a professional that has experience in dealing with care and wellness, and we're able to make the appropriate recommendations to families that way, to give families options so they know what their options are and can actually make educated decisions. So on behalf of their loved one.
You kind of help put the team together or put the pieces together.
Exactly, help put all the pieces together, and then we will oversee everything going on. So we might, let's say, in our assessment determine, all right, an individual needs care, and so they might say, well, we want to stay at home. We don't want to move mom to you know, any kind of facility. So we could then find the appropriate caregiver or caregivers, do all the screening, and then we oversee what's going on.
So you keep track.
We keep track because you never know. If you don't have somebody there, it's hard to know what's going on behind closed doors.
I think that's real important. And it's so hard for the family that's closest to the person that's ill. I mean, they're just stressed out and, you know, to try to do all that on top of it.
It's so much to take in. I mean, even just, you know, to get a prescription refilled can be a huge undertaking, right? To get someone to the physician, to make the appointment, you know, going through that whole process. So we can help along with the medication in that regard, you know, and help people that way.
So tell us the difference between assisted living, residential care, and skilled nursing facilities.
Yes. So if somebody is in a place where they can really no longer be in their home because they require too much care day to day, perhaps they can't walk or they can't bathe themselves, and maybe there isn't anyone available to be there with them, families might decide to move them to a facility. And there's really a wide variety. We're very lucky living here in the Bay Area that there are so many different kinds of facilities. So let's say we take an assisted living facility. That's a place where, should you need activities of daily living help with the bathing and so forth, there are beautiful places. People can rent an apartment. They have activities. They have assistance. for whatever kind of assistance you need. They usually have delicious food. Another option is a residential care home, where this is a little bit unique, where there are homes that are certified by the state to be care homes, and they're allowed to have up to 6 people there, so it's a little bit more personalized service.
Okay.
And then there's skilled nursing. When somebody requires nursing care, those are people that either can't swallow, they need maybe intravenous, to be fed intravenously, or they need, medications through, shots and so forth. So that's more nursing care. And we can help identify what they need and then identify places that would be applicable for them, and also help save people money.
That's good.
Yeah.
And maybe even transition from one type of facility to another as
that's exactly
things
what we
change.
do. Yeah.
Good.
So we will. That's really. I think of us as like the transition people, because we're helping families through transition, helping to ease their stress and their burden, and so they can understand what the options are that are available to them.
It just sounds like such a great program. It's like, oh my gosh, because like you said,
to help people.
Because we're all, I mean, none of us are getting any younger, and we all have aging parents.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like, hello.
And
so.
Unfortunately, between you and I, one of us is going to require long-term care in our lifetime.
And it's like,
exactly. And who's going to?
How do we?
It's expensive. It's very costly, right?
Yeah. So that leads in nicely to our next question: does Medicare cover the costs for caregivers or long-term care?
Well, unfortunately, Medicare does not cover those costs for long-term care. It will cover costs for home health, like physical therapy if somebody needs it, that you get a doctor's prescription for that as you would a medication prescription. And it will cover costs after something happens, should someone break their hip, should there be an accident. It will cover costs just up to a certain point. But Medicare will not cover long-term care, getting the caregiver in or paying for an assisted living facility. So that's where planning ahead for care is so important. And so we can help families along that path also. The baby boomers who are thinking, all right, I don't want to go through what my parents are going through now.
Right.
So to think ahead, maybe get long-term care insurance, that's a help.
Right. Yes, I think that's definitely something that people need to know more about. And even though it may seem expensive, it's like you were saying, what would the cost be per month if you didn't have that insurance?
Here in the Bay Area, cost for long-term care is about $70,000 a year.
A year?
Yes, for assisted living and or to have a private caregiver in your home.
Yeah. So a lot of it is education and just getting information out there.
Exactly.
Okay. What services or other services does Envision Care Management provide?
Well, we provide professional case management, if you will, and all those things that I already described. We're available should there be an emergency. So, a family has a loved one, let's say, that is, in the hospital and they have to travel for business, or maybe it's someone that doesn't live locally here, but their loved one is here. So we can be available for emergency services and be the eyes and ears of the family, really, to help advocate for them and to help families through the transition, to help ease their burdens.
Okay. And where in the Bay Area do you work?
So currently we work on the peninsula, San Mateo County and Santa Clara counties. And, we do our best to be able to give the families as much information as they possibly have, to be able to make educated decisions and hold their hands so they know that they're not alone going through this,
And then just to kind of wrap up, what other services does Envision Care Management provide?
We can help with final arrangements, should that time come. We can help with pre-planning for services. So like we were talking about long-term care insurance, so we can help somebody plan for their future, for retirement, for God forbid they get ill. There's so many things that can be done along that realm, and we can help point people in the right direction to be proactive and plan. So many of our clients are in crisis mode when they call us. So that way you don't have to be in crisis mode when you contact us,
That's so good. So Stacey Lehnen with Envision Care Management, you provide a great service.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
You really do a great job. So that concludes our program for today. I would like to thank Therese and Stacey, excellent guests on the show today, for being with us. And thank you, our audience, for tuning in. And we really appreciate your coming and watching us today. So take good care, and we hope to see you again soon. Bye now.